Ni hao, konnichiwa, shalom, ciao, bonjour, namaste, jambo.
Hey, bienvenidos! My name is Gently. This is Reading with Your Kids. We are beaming out to you in the entire solar system from the beautiful, historical, wonderful neighborhood of Reedville, the loveliest neighborhood in all of Boston. You know, here at Reading with Your Kids, we are all about celebrating the power of stories. Stories that inspire, uplift, and remind us how strong families become when they read together. We hope you'll help us spread the word and let your family and friends know about the show and know that they can hear us on the WREB AM/FM 24/7 radio network. And they can find us on the iHeartRadio app, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Good Pods, Podcast Addict, YouTube, Amazon Music, Audible, CastBox, Player FM. Wherever you find your favorite shows, you can find Reading with Your Kids. We have an amazing show for you today. First, joining us from British Columbia, Renee Nault is here to celebrate her YA graphic novel romance. It's called Salvage. And later in the show, joining us from Texas, Jen Weaver and Gail Wittenheimer are here to celebrate their new middle grade series, first book in the Kingswell Kid Detective series. It's called The Mystery of the Missing Falls. Hey, my friends, we have a brand new Reading with Your Kids certified great read, and I've got a question for you. When your kids look at a pile of leaves, what do they see? Something to jump in? Something you'll eventually have to rake? Well, after reading The Leaf Dragon by Bonnie Bright, they may see something completely different. And that's one of the reasons we're naming The Leaf Dragon a Reading with Your Kids certified great read. Walker loves autumn because that's when a very special friend returned, the magical leaf dragon. She calls Walker her little knight, and I absolutely love that idea, because being a little knight isn't about fighting monsters or rescuing princesses. It's about caring. Through Walker's adventures, kids begin to discover that those leaves covering the ground aren't just leaves. They're part of an amazing little world filled with creatures that need food, shelter, and protection. But here's what I really love about this book as a dad. The Leaf Dragon gives you a reason to keep the adventure going after you close the book. Read it together, and then go outside. Look under some leaves, watch the birds, search for bugs, and ask your kids, what do you think might be living here? You don't have to know the answer. Wondering together, it's part of the fun. Bonnie also includes nonfiction information and printable activities that give families and educators even more ways to explore, create, and learn together. Underneath all that fun is a message I think kids need to hear. You're not too little to make a difference. Small hands can help, small choices can matter, and caring about the world around us can actually become an adventure. So next time your kids see a pile of leaves, don't be surprised if they stop and take a closer look. There might be an entire little world hiding underneath. And who knows, maybe there's even a leaf dragon looking for her next little knight. Leaf Dragon by Bonnie Bright is our latest Reading with Your Kids certified great read. Before we invite our guest into the studio, I would love to invite you to visit a very special website. It's clownswithoutborders.org. Clownswithoutborders.org. This is a group that I absolutely adore. I am part of Clowns Without Borders, and I had the honor of being part of the 2023 tour of El Salvador. I had so much fun joining with artists from all over the world to bring a smile to people who really needed it and really appreciated it too. And we would love for you to join us as a monthly Joy Maker. The Joy Makers, they're a family of people just like you who love to laugh and make other people feel good. So please take a moment and visit clownswithoutborders.org and consider joining me as a Joy Maker. Join us right now from beautiful Vancouver Island and the nation of Canada. Our guest is here today to celebrate her new YA romance graphic novel. It's called Salvage. Please welcome to the show, Renee Nault. Renee, how are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Delighted to have you on. I have to tell you right off the bat, I'm not big on romance, just an old guy, old guy. But you're going to help me through this.
Absolutely.
Tell us about Salvage. Who are we going to meet?
So Paulo is the main character. Basically, the whole story takes place after climate change has caused the oceans to rise. So poor people live upland in beautiful new cities, and poor people live out on the tidal flats, and they scavenge from the old cities under the water. So Paulo is a teenage boy who lives in the flats and wants to be an artist. And one day he finds a suitcase full of designer clothes and decides to kind of infiltrate the uplands, see what it's like just for one night.
Wow, that's very cool. It catches me right off the bat because it's like, wow, this could be a thriller.
Yeah, it could be.
Yeah.
It's all in how it goes.
Well, we're going to keep our fingers crossed that the oceans don't rise. Otherwise, you and your friends on Vancouver Island are in trouble.
We are definitely in trouble, yeah. Yeah, and a lot of coastal cities are. I did a lot of research for the book, kind of discovered, like, where are the hot spots, and there's a lot of them. Turns out we like to build cities right on the water.
Well, being in Boston, I can definitely relate to that. Thankfully, we're kind of uphill we're still in the city, but we're a ways away. But, yeah, we do, probably because of, transportation, I guess, right?
Yeah, well, a lot of cities used to be, port cities, and they kind of built up from there.
Yeah. So what was the inspiration for this? Were you kind of hanging out on Vancouver Island and thinking about global warming, and this idea came to you, or?
Actually, I was living briefly in Bangkok, Thailand, and I was staying way, way, way far outside of the city. And I had to take a bus every day to get into the city. And every day I would go past this sort of like riverside shack area where people had these houses up on stilts. And they were kind of just living like really hard life like on these little tiny floating islands. And I thought, like, wow, what if like somebody from there wanted to go to like the up where like I'm going on the bus, like to this fancy shopping center where you can buy like a $20,000 purse. It was just the contrast of seeing that every day going from A to B. I started imagining this character doing the same thing.
Yeah. That is, we don't see that such drastic contrast most times here in the States and in Canada.
Yeah.
But I know in my, I've done a lot of traveling through the Caribbean and Central America, and we took my daughter and her husband with us 1 year through Costa Rica, and it was beautiful. But there was one day trip that we took that took us past folks who were living on stilts, and my daughter was visibly shaken because she had never kind of experienced that. We're very fortunate in where we live.
Oh yeah. Yeah, we're incredibly fortunate, and yeah, it's very shocking your first time seeing like how far your life is from other people's lives.
Yeah. I guess that's one of the questions that you dive deep into in this romance novel.
That's right, yeah, because of course when Paulo goes to the uplands for his one night of just seeing what it's like, he meets this girl and falls in love, and so he has to keep this pretense going for as long as he can. And of course, like the clock is ticking because you can't keep a lie up like that forever.
Yeah. Tell me, I know you're the author and illustrator of Salvage. What comes first for you? Is it a story or is it an image?
They're kind of inextricably linked.
Really?
I couldn't really say which one comes first. To me, like I think in pictures. So, the story and the picture are one.
Yeah. I was speaking to an author last night, also of a graphic novel, and she was sharing that she kind of gets to know her characters by sketching them. Is that something that you do too?
Absolutely, yeah. The more you draw, the more you figure out who each person is.
Talk a little bit about that. As you're drawing it, do you have an idea when you start, or do you just start noodling with your pen and paper or stylus and screen and are surprised by what comes out?
Yeah, well, it's all pen and paper for me. Like I don't do anything digitally. I'm really old school.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, I just start drawing and all kinds of stuff comes out. It's really like stream of consciousness, and it's surprising sometimes what happens.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, that's kind of how you discover what the story is going to be.
Yeah. Tell me, how did, because I think every author shares that their characters surprise them at some point. How did Paulo surprise you?
How did he surprise me? He was a lot angrier than I thought he would be because like I think I have kind of some unresolved anger about, class differences, and because Paulo wants to be an artist, he's running into a lot of the things that I ran into of like not having connections and not being taken seriously. So I kind of like wasn't sure how far I wanted to go with that. But in the end, like I let him sort of like express that anger because I think it's something that a lot of readers are going to identify with.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's funny. I've mentioned this on the podcast in the past. A couple of years ago, I went to the International Children's Book Festival in Bologna, Italy. And it was a wonderful, wonderful to see how big the children's book industry is and blown away by how big it is. But also, I was really surprised because I could spot illustrators in the crowd. My beautiful wife and I would be walking through and I go, there's an illustrator.
How did you know?
I don't know. It was something in their eyes. It was a hopefulness because
Oh my gosh.
the International Children's Book Festival was mostly publishers buying into IP.
Okay.
And, so buying a United States book and selling it IP in different countries. But there was just something different about and my wife was like, you don't know. And then we'd walk around some more and then we see the same person with their portfolio waiting in line to show it to an editor. And I'm like,
Oh my God. That's amazing.
Yeah.
I have no idea what that would be. I'd like to think that, your kind of artistic spirit shines through, but I have no idea.
Possibly. Being someone that, made a living on stage and, someone told me one time, we get, as a performer, you get hired and fired on the same day 200 or 300 times a year.
Yeah. That's amazing. It's true. And kind of the same thing with an artist, you're doing a lot of these small jobs and it feels weird sometimes.
Yeah. So if you wouldn't mind, talk a little bit about coming up and being kind of an angry young artist. Getting hired.
I don't want to oversell my anger here, but
no. We know that we blow things up when we're writing about them. But what was it like? Because I think there were a lot of parents who are listening, who might have, a kid who is artistic and maybe wants to do this thing, but parents are like, oh, you got to have a plan B, and it's really hard making a living in the arts, and it really is, but it's really rewarding if you're able to do it.
Yeah, well, I knew I wanted to be an artist, like, basically forever, so I went to art school. I originally applied to be an animator, but I wasn't good enough at drawing, so I got into an illustration program. That was at Sheridan College in Ontario. But what I had originally done is, like, I'd applied for all kinds of schools that I wanted to go to all around the world, and I got accepted to most of them, but we couldn't afford to send me to them. Mm-hmm. So, that was kind of like my first taste of like, my art career is going to go a little differently than some of my friends' art careers. But, it was an amazing opportunity still, and I certainly appreciated it and learned so much. And then, when I graduated, I started doing editorial illustration for magazines and newspapers, doing things like the LA Times book review section. And I did a lot of like fashion stuff, like little horoscopes and stuff for fashion magazines.
Uh-huh.
And, but of course, at that same time, some of my peers were getting like internships in New York or like apprenticeships with famous artists. But of course, you had to like support yourself in New mm-hmm. York with no money. So again, there's like that filter where like that privilege takes you to another level.
Right.
So, yeah. But on the other hand, like, I'm so lucky that I got to do any of that. So like I can definitely see myself in the love interest character who is like very privileged and doesn't even understand like the challenges that Paulo is going through.
Mm. How is that right? So it sounds like you took some inspiration from you for both of those characters.
Yeah, absolutely.
What's that like? Do you have to kind of juggle things, and do you find yourself putting something into Paulo and saying no, this should be in the other character?
Well, basically, I think that a lot of writers would say the same thing, where all your characters are kind of a little bit you. You know, you have to tap into different parts of yourself, but that's what makes them authentic. You know, if I was writing somebody who was not like me in any way at all, I wonder if it would come off as a little bit fake.
Mm. Mm. When did you know that you wanted to create graphic novels? Because this is it's not a brand new genre, but it certainly is a genre that's kind of exploding. I know my son, who just turned 33 today, was into manga and anime and whatnot, but it was still kind of a niche kind of thing. Now we see graphic novels all over the place, and it's really wonderful.
Yeah, well, I started making comics even when I was a little kid. I didn't even know that's what they were called at the time, but like, just little stories with words at the top that the characters were saying. So I think it just sort of came naturally. And when I realized like there was a whole book industry around graphic novels, it was like, that's what I want to do.
There you go. I've been fascinated. It seems like the past couple of months we've spoken to lots of graphic novel artists, and they all seem to have something that they didn't like drawing in their books. For one, it was bicycles. Another one, it was peas, like little peas that were the characters. What was it in Salvage that you had to draw 1,000 times and you really don't want to do it again?
Oh boy. Luckily, because I was kind of making up the world from scratch, I didn't have to draw anything that I didn't want to. Like, I really hate drawing cars, so I didn't really put any cars into the city. I imagined it as like this walkable paradise where like the transit was so good you didn't need a car, so there's no cars like taking up all the sidewalks. It's just like, shops and restaurants and art galleries and a real utopia with no cars that I'd have to draw.
I like that. You're the second artist who told me they don't like drawing cars. What is it about cars that you?
I don't know. Like they're kind of a generic block, but people who know about cars will be like, well, that's not a real car. That looks like a 1975 whatever, but it doesn't have the right hubcaps, and it's like, I don't care.
Yeah. Then I completely understand. I completely understand. Hey, as you're drawing the characters in creating those characters, what's going through your mind? I want to make this the most handsome person in the world, or I have to give him this flaw.
To draw them, I really just wanted them to be really expressive. So I kept the faces like fairly simple and really like tried to act with them. And of course, like when you're drawing, you're unconsciously making the face that your character is making. So that's really embarrassing if anyone sees that.
So I'm guessing you're not out at the mall doing.
Oh no. Nobody can see.
Are you like a lot of other artists I've spoken to, carry a sketchbook or a little notepad everywhere you go and just occasionally sit down and start sketching?
I don't really, because people will come up to you if you're sketching in public. Mm-hmm. And this might be more of a thing for women than for men, but like the minute you take out your sketchbook at a coffee shop, there's somebody over your shoulder like, what are you doing? And it's not fun.
Yeah. Whatever I'm doing, I didn't invite you to join me.
Yeah, exactly. And like, if that happened just once or twice, it would be fine, but it's every time.
Wow. So if you're listening to this and you see somebody pull out a sketchbook at a coffee shop, leave them alone.
Oh, now I feel like a jerk.
No. I think we have to understand that. I think we've gotten to the point now where if we see a celebrity sitting down and eating dinner, we know enough to like just wave, maybe, if you catch their eye. And
Some people know enough.
Yeah, I know. I love it. It's like, excuse me, I don't mean to bother you, but it's like,
here I go.
You are bothering me. Tell me what's next for you. Are you working on another graphic novel at the moment?
I have a few ideas that I'm working on, but nothing is firm yet.
Okay. And is the YA genre your comfort zone, or are you looking to do middle grade or picture books at all?
Well, this is my first YA book, because previously I had collaborated with Margaret Atwood to adapt The Handmaid's Tale. So that was a big 180 from doing like a adult literary graphic novel to a YA graphic novel.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like I'm equally confident in both of them, but the YA was really fun. Honestly, I can definitely see myself doing that again.
Yeah, that's fantastic. What advice might you have for again, a parent of that creative person? I always love this. We had one artist on from Italy, and I asked her, and she was very nervous. She didn't have strong English, and she was worried. But when I asked her how her parents supported and encouraged her creativity, she just broke out, and she said, they painted all the walls in my room white, and they said, go for it. And I could do anything at all in my walls.
Yeah, well, it's kind of the same for me. Like my dad, at his work, he used to have one of those big, like, I guess, graphing machines, and they had the huge paper. So he'd bring home these gigantic rolls of paper and put them all up on my walls, and I could draw on that as much as I wanted. And yeah, I don't know, just having that kind of space and freedom, I think is like the best thing you could do.
Yeah, I love that. My team has encouraged me. I don't use, if you didn't notice, I don't use a set of prepared questions here. Surprise, surprise. But my team is encouraging me to ask all of our authors at the end of their interviews, what would you love for a kid to hear, little kid, teenager, to hear as they're going to bed from an adult that they love?
Wow. Just that, like, you don't have to figure it all out right now. You got lots of time. And I feel like the young adults that I meet feel like they're under so much pressure to, like, know what they want to do, and just be successful right away. And I feel like everything is moving so fast now, and they're not given time to just explore and be quiet and use their imaginations. Everybody's always like, oh, you like drawing? Okay, how are you going to make money off of that? And like, what kind of art do you want to do? And like, oh, what's the next step? And it's like, I think that you're going to lose your joy in something if you're always rushing to find the next thing. Yeah. Does that make sense?
It absolutely makes sense. I have a niece that I adore who's 22, and she sends me these memes because housing prices in Boston are just as crazy as they are in all of Canada. And, she's worried. But she sent me a meme the other day that kind of was a carousel, and it went through like, most people don't come out of college making $150,000 a year. No. And most people don't buy their first home until they're in their late 30s. And most people don't get their dream job and it was just kind of reminding, and I was really happy that she found it, just reminding her that, hey, there's time.
Yeah.
You're 23. You have, 60, 65, 70 years ahead of you.
Yeah. And they're under so much more pressure than we used to be because of just seeing, things on the internet. And I kind of delve into that in Salvage a little bit because social media is a big aspect of it. And just comparing yourself always to people who have more than you, but also who are just showing you the best parts of their lives.
Right. And that car that they're in is probably rented.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I love that Salvage, because we encourage families to continue reading with their kids when they become independent readers and they're getting into middle grade. And I also think reading YA with our kids is a great thing to do. What great conversations. I'm imagining a family reading Salvage together or co-reading it. Talk about the environment. Talk about what that whole thing about social media. Any other things you think families can talk about as they're experiencing your book?
Yeah, I mean, there's, like you said, climate change, there's class disparity, there's social media, and then there's just like relating to humans, because Paulo really struggles to balance his relationships with his friends, to this new person he's interested in, and like leading this double life. And it's really about like communicating with your friends and valuing your different relationships. Yeah, like I really tried to make sure that even when people were acting badly towards others, that they would find a way to communicate and apologize.
Okay, great. Well, it's obvious that you have a lot of pride in Salvage, and so we want to make sure everybody knows where they can go to find out more about the book and also find out more about you.
Yeah, well, my website is just reneenault.com, and you can find me on Instagram as well under the same name. It's easy to find me because it's not that common of a name.
Yeah. We've had a wonderful time speaking to the author and illustrator of Salvage, a YA romance graphic novel. Our guest has been Renee Nault. Hey, Renee, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Hey, this is a message for all the authors that are listening. You worked hard on your book. You spent months, maybe years, writing, revising, dreaming, and believing. You created characters, solved problems, overcame doubts, and brought a story into the world that only you could tell. Now it's time to help readers discover it. The Reading with Your Kids Certified Great Read program is created to celebrate outstanding children's books and to help authors reach more families. When a book earns our seal of approval, we don't stop with an award certificate. We review the book, feature it on the podcast, share it across social media, and help introduce it to parents, teachers, librarians, and caregivers who are looking for great books to share with kids. Because your story matters. And the families who need your story deserve a chance to find it. Please visit readingwithyourkids.com and click the Authors Click Here button at the top of the page to learn more. That's readingwithyourkids.com. Let your book find the readers it was written for. Hey, my friends, I want to tell you about a coffee company I recently discovered that really lines up with the values we talk about right here at Reading with Your Kids. It's called Afrera Coffee Company, and they're doing things the right way. The coffee is sourced directly from certified Rainforest Alliance farms in Central and South America, with a big focus on farms in El Salvador. I love El Salvador. They work directly with local farmers, support sustainable farming practices, and even use recyclable and combustible packaging. Now, all of that would already make me feel good about supporting them, but honestly, the coffee itself, it's fantastic. You can really taste the quality. The beans are grown in rich volcanic soil and carefully roasted, so the flavor really comes through smooth, rich, and super aromatic. Now, whether you're somebody who loves a strong espresso to get moving in the morning, or you prefer a lighter roast while reading a good book, Afrera has something you're going to enjoy. And this is kind of beautiful. 5% of all their sales goes to charities helping conserve and preserve the great outdoors. So if you'd like to try coffee that tastes amazing and supports good people doing good work, head on over to afreracoffee.com. That's AFUERA coffee.com, and use the promo code READ to get an exclusive 15% off your order. And of course, when you use the code, you're also helping support the podcast. Great coffee and helping families grow closer together. I'd call that a pretty magical way to start your day. Our guests are joining us from the great state of Texas. They're here to celebrate a brand new series. The series is called the Kingswell Kid Detective Series. The first book, The Mystery of the Missing Falls. Joining us first, Gail Feichtenheimer. Gail, how are you?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having us, Jed. It's a pleasure to be here.
Delighted to have you on. And also joining us is someone who may be conspiring to take over the show. I'm not sure. Please welcome Jen Weaver. Jen, how's it going?
It's going great, and this call is going to be an adventure, I can already tell.
Excellent. I love adventures. So, Jen, why don't we start with you? Tell us, what is the mystery of the Missing Falls all about?
So we are following the story of Luca and Ember, who are cousins and fellow kid detectives. They are trying to solve their town's oldest mystery. They live in Kingswell Falls, but the waterfalls that gave their town its name disappeared over 100 years ago. No one's ever been able to find the original location, and it's such a big deal that every Founders Day, there's a contest that the grown-ups get in on too, trying to figure out where the falls were, what happened to them. And this year, there's a special prize, and so Luca and Ember have just established their agency. They want to be taken seriously. They're smart. They know how to solve problems and riddles and mysteries, and this is how they're introducing their new detective agency to their town.
Wow, a lot going on there, Gail. I love it. Kids love solving riddles and puzzles.
They do. And we have an old map with codes and clues hidden in the map key. We also have a Native American angle that a good part of the town has a Cherokee background. And the Kingswell cousins actually team up with the Kingswell kid detectives to solve this mystery. And there's a unique Cherokee angle. So that brings in a lot of fun.
Excellent.
Fun things.
Yeah. Tell me, Jen, you told me before we hit record that you and Gail are members of the same critique team, and you have this friendship and decided one day, hey, let's write a series together. How did that first conversation go?
I had never written kids fiction. I'd actually not written fiction since I was a kid. And going, way back, my first dream job was to be an author when I was growing up. I loved reading any book I can get my hands on, but especially Hardy Boys and Nancy Drew and 60-Second Mysteries. And so you fast forward to a few years ago, Gail and I had been in the same writer's critique group for a while, which is where you bring whatever you're working on and you get feedback on it to help you improve your writing skill. And I knew she had done some work on fiction and stuff for kids. And I was trying to find this kind of book for my boys who are now 8 and 11 years old. I wanted fun and adventure. I wanted something that helped them explore mysteries in real life and explore their faith in real life circumstances along with these dynamic kid characters. And I just couldn't find the type of books that I was looking for. And so I went to Gail and I said, hey, would you want to consider writing some kids fiction with me? And so we started talking about it and praying about it. And Gail came back and said, yeah, I actually think we should approach these like mysteries. And then I was definitely on board. I was like, okay, we have something here. We have to see where this goes.
Now, Gail, I understand that the books are faith-based. Am I right in thinking that?
That's correct. They are woven within the mystery. Jen and I, who both of us are Bible teachers, have woven in a discipleship component. And in this first one, the mystery of the missing falls, the emphasis is on prayer and hearing God speak.
Discipleship. Define that a little bit more for me, please.
Just how parents would pass on a legacy of faith to their children. You know, who is God? What does it look like to walk with him? What is it like to be his kid? And what does that look like in real time, in real life? Which is what we've tried to show in our story.
Yeah. I'm a big proponent of continuing to read with our kids after they become independent readers and they graduate from their first chapter books to middle grade novels. It's not necessarily a book that you're going to sit down and cuddle up on the couch and read together, but maybe you co-read the book and talk about it on the way to school, on the way to church, sitting around the dinner table. Because I think reading about stories and talking about dilemmas that characters face from a faith-based angle, whatever the faith is that you're trying to instill, is the most effective way to do it. Certainly works a lot better, Jen, than sitting down and saying, this is what I believe, and I want you to believe it too.
Oh, it sure does. And for kids, they see faith as part of real life. As they're walking through life as you, as they're invested grown-up, whether you're a parent, whether you're a grandparent, an aunt, mom's best friend, whoever you are, as you're sharing your life and your beliefs with them, they're like, okay, that makes sense to me. help me now see how that applies to real life. And so getting to do it through story is a really great way to help kids envision, okay, practically, what does this look like? And what can this look like not just for you as a grown-up, but for me as a kid in my day when I'm working on schoolwork or I'm facing this thing with my friends. And I love how you talk about it too with continuing to read alongside our kids, because I think a lot of times when we're talking with parents who are like, I want to share my faith, I want to share my beliefs with my kids, a lot of parents feel intimidated by it. They don't feel qualified. They feel unsure about how to start the conversation or what to say if their kid has questions. And so the Kingsville Kid Detective series really makes that accessible. It's like, okay, well, read the chapter and talk about what you just read. And we're kind of opening the door to a parent to have these conversations that can even be kid-led as the child reads, oh, Luke is struggling to hear God. He doesn't know how that goes. Or Ember said this thing. What does that mean? And so they're kind of walking along this journey with our kid detectives, and they're exploring their faith as detectives too.
Yeah. You know, Gail, Jen said something interesting. There might be parents out there who don't feel qualified to talk about their faith. And that may be true. And I think if you don't feel qualified, that should be the first thing that you'd say to a kid. Say, I don't know. Let's explore this together.
Exactly. And reading together is a good way to do that. In one of your episodes, you talked about building reading stamina, and I loved that. I read with my youngest son for well through elementary school. And one thing that we have done with the Kingsville series is geared it primarily toward boys, knowing girls would come along if it was a good story, but short chapters, lots of white space on the page, just making it to where it doesn't look intimidating to the reader. So it is easy to read together or to co-read at the same time, and hopefully build that reading stamina and help them to stay with the story.
Yeah. I think that's really important. Jen, I had an experience I've shared here on the podcast in the past, where my kids were very involved in our church when they were younger, and would be up on the altar. And I had a mom come to me one day and say, oh, you must be so proud of your kids. And I'm like, yeah, I am pretty proud. Oh, they're involved in this and that. And that's really fantastic. But my daughters were getting ready to go off to college, and I'm so nervous because when kids go to college, they start questioning their faith. And I thought, well, that's great. Because if your faith can't stand up to questions, then maybe you shouldn't be faithing in that faith.
Yeah, I think it's great. I think kids actually start with questions a lot younger than that. We kind of hit these big milestones when they're going to college, they're becoming adults, they have to make these huge decisions where it kind of puts stress on the questions that have yet been unanswered. But kids are full of questions. I know because I'm in this like elementary age season of life. My kids are our target reader age with kids like 8 to 12. My kids have questions all day long. And so I want them to feel like it's okay to have questions about their faith. I want them to wrestle through what they believe and why they believe it, because that's what makes their faith personal to them. It's not just, oh, this is what my parents believe, or my family's always gone to church, but this is who I know God to be. And this is how, and this is why I pray. And this is what his voice sounds like. And I know that not because, oh no, I've turned 18 and now I have to practice hearing him for myself for the very first time, but I've been practicing listening to him and learning what he's like since I was 8 years old, way back with these kid detective books. And I get to keep walking with him as maturity grows as I age. And so that's my hope for my kids. I know that's Gail's hope for her grandkids. And that's our prayer for our readers and these families too, that you can approach faith in real age appropriate ways right now.
Yeah. We do include a lot of questions that adults wrestle with when it comes to prayer and hearing God speak. And we hit a lot of those right off the bat early in the book.
Yeah. Jen, I don't mean to sound flippant, but you mentioned listening to God. What do you say to the person that's listening? Maybe they don't have a Christian faith tradition. Maybe they don't have any faith tradition at all. who might be thinking, yeah, listening to God, yeah, okay, and I listen to Little Green Men from Mars too, and that's just all nonsense.
Well, I think that's totally valid if you haven't heard him speak before. And I don't mean to give a flippant answer, but it is a practice of learning to recognize someone's voice, the same as we recognize the voice of a friend or a loved one. I could be in a crowded auditorium with 100 other kids, and one of my boys calls out, "Mom!" And I can pick their voice out of a crowd. And so in the same way that we learn to recognize the voices of other people who love us and who we love, we get to recognize God's voice. Now, I don't hear him audibly. That's not what I'm saying. I would love that. Wouldn't turn that down. But there are so many consistent ways that God speaks with us. One of them is in his word. One of them is through nature, as his creative power is on display. One of them is in sharing peace with us beyond the understanding we can have on our own. And so throughout the book and throughout my own discipleship of my kids, I'm helping them not just take this theory of, okay, we're Christians, so we believe God loves us and we believe he's close and we believe he still speaks, but let's turn it into practice. How can we actually practice tuning our ears to recognize his voice? And that always goes back to aligning with what the Bible says about him. And so I know for people of different faith perspectives, this probably differs from your faith background. But if you're listening to this and you're a Christian, it's really looking at, okay, do I want my kids to practically know how to experience God like we believe he is in real life? Then if I believe that's true about him, how can I start experiencing him that way? And as a parent, how can you grow in your own experience of him that way too? Because that's part of how we share it with our kids.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love that we've hit on this a couple of times. It's not that we have a perfect faith and it's all set in stone and we're just passing it on down. It's, hey, this is the journey that we're doing together, kids.
Together. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Even as a grandparent, my husband and I definitely take that role with our grandchildren of, hey, we're all walking the same journey. We're just a little farther down the trail than you are. So let's go together.
Yeah. Gail, I'm curious. You told us that, you guys came together at the critique group. That's great. Friendships. Creating together is a totally different thing. I've, heard there are legends of songwriters fighting with each other over which way a song should go and whatnot. And then I just was reading some things last night about how one of my favorite bands when I was a kid broke up. They had been a blues band, then they did some pop stuff, and that's when they got success. And half the band's like, no, we have to go back to our roots. And the other half is like, oh, I want to make some money. What about, how'd the creative process go? Did Luca and Ember, were they created over a cup of coffee, or did one of you have the idea and share it and kind of polish it together?
Let's see. Much prayer went into it, and I tend to do the initial drafting, so plot and structure tends to fall to me, where Jen focuses more on character development. And then once we have that initial structure, once we have the initial shape of our characters, then the two of us come together and spend so many hours on Zoom revising and editing chapter by chapter together. And that's where I think the magic happens as we talk through different points, how much spiritual content to put in, how and where to put it in. But we always start every session with prayer and are always praying for unity and harmony and to get on God's page and not on ours.
Jen, if I'm hearing right, I'm envisioning, Gail's kind of there keeping us on the rails. And meanwhile, maybe the Holy Spirit is coming down, filling you with all sorts of ideas that you're just throwing out there. And Gail's like, okay, hold on. Let me put this over here and this one and hold that for a while. We'll get back to that next week. And is that kind of what the creative process looks like?
Yeah. And the great thing too is the Holy Spirit's creativity flows into all sorts of structure stuff. Like he's he is in all of the things. So there will be things that she comes with in structure that I'm like, oh, that would go great with this type of character personality. And so then we start working through it and we're like, oh, okay, this needs adjustments. What are you thinking about this? Or how do you see this character? What do we want them to be doing here? What's their wrestling with? And so it's a lot of like collaboration and iterations, and let's try layering this thing in to see what happens. And it's fun because we come up with things that neither Gail or I would come up with on our own, not only because of our partnership with each other, but because of the way that we get to partner with God in the process.
Yeah. Jen, you mentioned hearing a couple of episodes. I don't know if you had heard, I had an experience. I made a living doing educational magic shows for 35 years. And there's a lot of moments when you're on stage and if you're comfortable improvising, you just, get these ideas that come and you throw them out there and when it works, it's phenomenal. A lot when you're writing and you have a great idea. I was doing a show in a church. Priest called me up and said, hey, we're having bringing back our college kids were in our youth group. We're having a party for the 8th anniversary of the group. What else do you do for a kids party? Invite a clown in. So come on in and perform for these college kids. And I get up on stage. And at that time, I think my daughter was in 3rd grade and she would be performing with me a lot. And we were on stage. We got this college kid up on stage with me. And the Holy Spirit took over. I just started my daughter's on stage with me going, Bobby, what are you doing? And I said, baby, I don't know. Just follow, just kind of go with it. And we did. It was great. And the priest at the end of the show came up to me and said, I had no idea you had a gospel magic show. And I said, neither did I, Father, but I'm glad you liked it.
Ah, that's great.
We have so many God stories.
Yeah. Yeah. So, so many God stories. This is book 1 of the Kingswell Kid Detective series. Gail, what's the plan? You're the structure person. Is this going to be a trilogy, a duology, or are you just going to go until the inspiration stops?
We were contracted for 4 books at this point, and we are currently working on book 4. The discipleship element changes with each book. So book 1, prayer and hearing God speak. Book 2 is identity and belonging. And that we have a fun God story there because Jen and I were at a point in our editing that we wanted to beef up the spiritual content. And I thought, I'm just going to do one more read through. And when I did, I saw that God was ahead of us and already had a thread. And I called Jen. I said, Jen, forget the notes. This is the direction that God wants to go. We need to pivot. And we did. And there's a couple of scenes there that both of us can barely get through when we read them out loud because they're fun. Book 3 touches on overcoming fear. And in book 4, we will deal with how do you find what's true in a confusing world? And we'll deal a little bit with AI.
Ooh, that is interesting. I am very intrigued. AI comes in very handy helping me with this podcast. But I also know that there's some pitfalls and my AI friends oftentimes hallucinate, if not outright lie to me. So,
I've had that issue too. And for any listeners here who are like, okay, the spiritual themes are great, but I need to sell this to my kids. What are the plots? What are we doing here? So the Mystery of the Missing Falls, we have this waterfall with old journals and maps and cipher or symbols and codes, all of these things. Book 2, there's a prankster who's pulling crazy pranks at school, and the kid detectives need to figure out who it is and why. Book 3, they're actually on vacation. They're not supposed to be working right now. They're in the Grand Canyon, but something is going on with the bats in the Grand Canyon, and there's drones that are showing up where they shouldn't be, and drones aren't allowed in the canyon. And so they get brought in by a park ranger to help figure out what's going on. And then book 4, there's robots, and they're at Steam Camp. And that's all we're saying about that one right now.
All right. I love it. I really, really do love it. Have you had the chance, this is for either one of you, have you had the chance to do any book events yet? Any sneak previews to kids and getting any feedback from kids?
We did have a homeschool convention in May. The book launches in August, but we had a blast talking to families, and we actually had an old map made. It's a deer skin map, just like in the book, and that was a big hit. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I've been reading it to my boys, so they get advance access to book one, and they'll beg me at the end of the chapter, wait, one more chapter today, which, I mean, fills my heart as a mom, but is also really exciting to see that they're wanting to do this. And we actually have a note to the grown-ups at the beginning of each book where Gail and I are sharing our heart behind the spiritual focus for that one. And so at the beginning of The Mystery of the Missing Falls, we tell them our hope is that your kid finishes a chapter and talks with God more. It's not just a takeaway at the end, it's all the way through. And I've gotten to start seeing glimpses of that with my own kids, where they're telling me, I was talking to God about this the other day, and I saw him answer in this circumstance, or I asked him about this, and then we read this in the Bible. And so it's been really cool to see that prayer already being answered in my family.
Well, that's wonderful. Let's tell everybody where they can go to find out more about the Mystery of the Missing Falls and find out more about both of you. So, Gail, we'll start with you.
We have a website for the series. It is kingswellkids.com, and everything you would ever want to know is there, including our bios. I'm a grandmother. I have a podcast called the Christian Grandparenting Podcast, and I'm seminary trained. Jen and I mentioned we're both Bible teachers. Jen?
Yeah, go to the series website. That's a great place to connect with us. As a Bible teacher, I do teachings on YouTube, and my podcast is Good God Talks, which is where I help you have everyday conversations with God. I also want to mention we have an ongoing book club. So the Kingswell Kid Detectives book club is at kingswellkids.com. It's free. Sign up. We have all sorts of free resources that come out, including devotionals and word searches and Mad Libs and all sorts of fun things to help your kid detective get engaged in the world of Kingswell Falls.
We've had a really great time speaking to the authors of The Mystery of the Missing Falls. It is book one in the new Kingswell Kid Detective series. Our guests have been Jen Weaver and Gail Weitenheimer. My friends, thank you so much for being on Reading with Your Kids.
Thanks for having us,
Jen.
Hey, we hope you've enjoyed this episode of Reading with Your Kids and would join us for the next exciting episode of the show. If this episode made you smile or gave you something to think about, please consider sharing a link to the show with someone you love. Leave a 5-star review and, of course, subscribe to the show wherever you find your favorite shows. Please also connect with us on social media, facebook.com/readingwithyourkids, at Reading with Your Kids on Instagram, at Gently Magic on X. Our YouTube channel, youtube.com/readingwithyourkids, and our website, readingwithyourkids.com. Want to thank the folks who made today's show so wonderful, starting with our amazing guest, Renee Nault. Please be sure to check out Salvage, a graphic novel YA romance. Also want to thank Jen Weaver and Gail Weitenheimer. Please be sure to check out The Mystery of the Missing Falls. It's the first book in the Kingswell Kid Detective series. I want to thank my incredible team, Darlene Rose, Adrina Lopez, Chris Doherty, our new intern, Madison Lucchese. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all the love and support she gives me. Most of all, we all want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. And as always, thank you so very much for taking the time to make the world a better place and to give your kids a chance to be as happy and successful as they can be. And you do that every single time you read with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next episode of Reading with Your Kids.
Let's light up the night. Come on. In a world that can be heavy, we lift each other high with a spark in our hearts. We reach for the sky. Hand in hand, we're stronger, breaking every chain, every smile, every laugh. makes us dance in the rain. We're a tapestry of colors, woven so divine. When we stand up for each other, together we shine. Together we shine like stars in the night. Illuminate the darkness, oh so bright. We stand for our brothers, we stand for our friends. Together we rise, love knows no ends. Let's vibe to the rhythm, everyone join in with open arms. Let the party begin. When the road gets rough and the skies turn gray, we find our light, chase the shadows away. Every voice is a treasure, a melody so pure. In this dance of acceptance, we find the cure. Lifting spirits higher, feeling so alive. In a world that embraces, we thrive and we strive. Together we shine like stars in the night. Illuminate the darkness, oh so bright. We stand for our sisters, we stand for our kin. Together we rise, love knows no ends. Let's fight to the rhythm, everyone join in with open arms. Let the party begin. We're all in this together. No one left behind, we'll dance forever. In this beautiful chaos, let your colors unfold. In the warmth of our hearts, we're brave and bold. So lift your chin up, let the world see your light. Together we shine, making every moment bright. Together we shine, making every moment bright. Together we shine like stars in the night. Illuminate the darkness, oh so bright. We stand for our brothers, we stand for our friends. Together we rise, love knows no ends. Let's vibe to the rhythm, everyone join in with open arms. Let the party begin. Together we shine, together we play. Round and round, let's dance the night away. Every heart, every story, we make it our own. In this bright celebration, we found our home. With joy in our smiles, let love intertwine. In this beautiful world, together we shine.